Hello, Discourse Army. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 141 of Discourse in Magic with Joe Diamond. Now, this was a very fun episode to record. Joe is a guest that has been recommended and requested multiple times, and boy, did he deliver. We spoke about a ton of things, but for me, this was really a right place, right time, because one of the things that has been ailing me is this idea of belief. What does the audience believe when they're going to see a magic show? And Joe really knocks that right out of the park and gives us a different idea to come at it. And his magic really delivers in that front. Stuff really feels like your mind is being read, or really feels spooky, or really feels like time travel. And in this episode, he's going to tell you exactly how that works. So here it is, episode 141 with Joe Diamond. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and I am here with a very special guest. This is someone who has been recommended at least twice on the podcast itself, but quite a few other times in person, or people have sent me messages. And unfortunately, we haven't met yet in person, but he has blown my mind through everything that I've seen, through advice that has come through videos that I've seen. Really, and then I've been exploring some of the ways that he's been performing, and that's been blowing my mind as well, because some of them are like the dreams that performers have. They're like, I wish I could perform in these situations, and he's got them all. So he's got so much advice in all of the right categories. I'm very excited to be here with Joe Diamond. How are you, Joe?
Doing great. When you say it that way, you make it sound like I know what I'm doing. I'm just going with it.
The way I feel about that kind of thing is like, whether we know what we're doing or not, when you end up stumbling into the right thing, it's great.
Oh, yeah.
Get on the mountaintop and tell people how you did it. So, although I'm pretty confident that you didn't stumble into this,
yeah, well, it is odd. And one of the people who recommended me is my good friend David Parr, and we did a show together for 10 years. But like, I grew up watching Eugene Berger's instructional videos, and David's on a lot of those. And I was like, 14, 15, 16 watching those like every day. And to be friends with and of course I got to know Eugene while he was alive as well too. And like the videos you watch, like as you fall asleep at night, and now they're like your friends and they're on speed dial, is just crazy. It's like what's going on? What is life? What is reality?
And it's so mind blowing, because that's something that shows up over and over in Magic, and it's something that I'm always preaching to young people in Magic, that it's like, by the way, here's a secret. If you message people, if you message your idols, they'll answer you, because it's just, there's not that many of them.
I did a radio show for a number of years, and I had to come up with guests every week. And I was like, I just looked at my bookshelf and was like, let's find their emails. And like a lot of them, not all of them said yes, but enough of them did. And a couple of my favorite authors are now friends. When I'm in their city, they come and see my show. When they come to my city, they crash with me. It's like, again, what is reality? What is life?
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. We're already having too much fun. Let's slow things down. How did you get started? How did you get into Magic?
It's the standard story. A Magic Kit, David Copperfield specials. I really loved the interactive routines on the David Copperfield special. And like when with
your finger on the screen.
Yeah, with your finger on the screen. And like we take for granted now, like, we touch a screen and something happens. It's part of our everyday experience. But like to be playing a board game on your TV screen, and then Copperfield just snaps and everything falls away except for what your finger's on. And it's something you recorded 3 weeks ago and it's still working. Just blows your mind as a kid. It's awesome. So there was that. But I was also interested in all kinds of weird and bizarre things. Like when I was 4, I was a Ghostbuster for Halloween, which that was like early 80s. For me, this was early 90s. So Ghostbusters was kind of already a thing, and no other kids were really into it. There was the cartoon show, but even the cartoon show like it was more towards the end when I was that age. So like, I was the weird kid dressing up as a Ghostbuster.
See, but here's the thing. Here's what's so cool about this is, I mean, you're saying it as if it's standard, but what I'm hearing here, which is like quite illuminating, is the things that you're interested in is not the puzzles of magic, but
No, it's the
rather
magic
the
of
like
magic.
like the belief and the magic and the, you know, like, and it's so funny because you say that it's standard because somehow David Copperfield is in this story, but everything else aside from that is like you being like, oh, I love witches. You know what I mean? Like,
and I didn't realize that until much, much later that there was a connection, that, oh, this magic was a way to make those TV shows and books real. It was 4 when I read Sherlock Holmes, when I first started reading Sherlock Holmes. Now, it was the illustrated, you know, beginners versions of the writings, but I was still reading those. I was the kid my mom had to take books away from. What was great right for me, that was a perfect timing, is right when I thought, well, you know, do I want to be David Copperfield when I grow up? The World's Greatest Magic special started coming out, and that had such a variety of magic on it. It had everything. I mean, like, look at that first World's Greatest Magic special. A lot of people talk about, Franz Ferrari made the space shuttle vanish. But look at who else was on that show. I mean, you've got Juan Tamariz.
Yeah.
Like, you've got, who else was on that first special? I'm going through my, Greg Ferwin, I think, doing one of his early Bird acts. Topaz was on the first World's Greatest Magic. Like, all of that was being beamed directly into everyone's homes on Thanksgiving. And like, I was like, oh, I could do close up. Oh, hey, this guy has birds. Oh, this guy, you know, tells jokes. You know, I think Amazing Jonathan was on that first one, or Jeff Hobson, one of those two. They were on the first or second. So there was comedy magic. There was close up magic. There was, you know, stage. There was enough of different stuff from all around the world to make me go, oh, I don't
just
have
explode your brain about what you could possibly do.
I don't have to save up to buy a box to put a girl in. I don't have to, you know, I don't have to do any of that. Here's this guy, you know, from Spain in a purple top hat, you know, screaming jokes and lifting up a table to show nothing's underneath it. And so I was able to see from a young age that there were a lot of options. Career-wise, a shift for me was I got a job doing street performing at Six Flags Great America.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 17 when I got that gig. Now, this was my Hamburg, because I was there 7 hours a day. I worked from noon till 7:30 with a half-hour unpaid break in there. So 7 hours a day. And I was just, now, Chris Capehart talks about the differences between street magic and magic on the street. Like David Blaine's street magic, that's not street magic, that's magic on the street. A lot of street magicians, a lot of buskers say that that's street magic and everything else is close-up magic on the street, which is what I was doing, just to be clear. But for sake of this discussion,
you were doing close-up magic on the street.
Yes. Okay. So, but it's like 7 hours a day. So I got to create tricks and try them out the next day, like 3-4 times a week throughout the entire summer. If it didn't work, I would go up to someone else. One day, I was so bored of card tricks. One day, I think I'm the only 17-year-old that experienced professional magic burnout. So I left the cards in the case and went out and had to do magic with only items that were borrowed or in my pockets. I learned to do palm reading and did that for a whole day. I got to learn mentalism, geek magic. Anything I wanted to try, I could go out and try, and there really wasn't anyone saying I could or couldn't do that. So that, and again, by the time I'm done with high school now, I mean, do the math, this, you know, 7 hours a day, 3-4 times a week, for about, 20 weeks, do the math, and how many times I did each trick.
But what's so interesting is, again, like, I'm trying to pick out the things that are different, right? Because I'm trying to look for the things here that have made you so wise, right?
Well, thank you.
And the, what's cool is a lot of other people, when they have an opportunity, and I'm even referring to myself because I have opportunities now that are low risk and really regular. So I have regular low risk performing opportunities, and I don't take enough risks. No matter how much risks I don't take enough risks. I don't show up one day and do mentalism and show up another day and do a coin trick. Well, I mean, I do, but not to the extent, like, I'm trying to do that more. And it's interesting that you're telling me that, you had this gig and you ran the gambit of all of the magic you could do instead of doing the same magic over and over again. Why was that?
Well, I did do the same magic over and over. I mean, every group I started with Crazy Man's Handcuffs. I mean, when I sat down and did the math, I've done that piece well over 12,000 times.
Right.
And it's semi-retired for me. Not to say I'm never going to do it again. I might pick pick it up again at a later date. But I taught it to David Parr, and he's doing it in his show now, which is awesome. But yeah, I don't. Well, and I think part of it too is those David Blaine specials, because I mean he did all these different kinds of things, and I wasn't the only corporate control they had over me is I auditioned, and then once they were like, okay, yeah, you'll do this, you'll walk around on the streets doing this, they gave me my costume to wear. One year it was this terrible blue suit, but the second year it was a faded jeans and like a green tie-dye type shirt with green Chucks or Converse.
Which is still your costume to this day.
Yes, which is still my costume to this day, exactly. Well, what was funny too is like my out for like when I was a teenager, if someone wanted me to wear a ridiculous costume or a tux, I would always say, and this is a line I got from Jay Sankey, but it was actually I have a number of secret pockets that are in my suits. So if you you'll have to go through the expenses of it paying to have secret pockets installed in the costume you want me to wear. And everyone else said, okay, just a suit and tie is fine. But at Six Flags, where they have professional seamstresses, they're like, okay, great, this is so-and-so, she can just tell her what you need.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, I had to like invent secret pockets now.
Oh, really?
Well, I had like pockets that were like just the right size for like my Mullica wallet, for example, or a deck of cards, that kind of thing. So while I was doing all this, I was creating a lot of stuff as well. I also did my first restaurant job when I was 17. I started at one end of there's like a street of restaurants in my hometown. And I literally started at one end and walked into each one, asked to see the owner, and got told no for all of them. And I was ready to give up, but I was like, there's one more left. Just go in. I went in, and that one said yes.
Wow.
And I had a gig. Now, it was $20 an hour for 2 hours on a Saturday, but still for, 17 years old, it's not too bad. So I was trying out all these different routines I was creating.
By the way, even now, that's great. If someone got that opportunity right now, I don't want everyone to think like, oh, inflation, that was a nickel in my... No, legit, like if you're 17 and you want to get out and performing and you have that opportunity, go and do that.
Yeah. 20. I think 20 has to be the minimum just for our art form's sake. But yeah. So I was inventing a lot of stuff, and I had an opportunity to try them out. And on a whim, this is a really really unique story, I'll admit. On a whim, I was on Jay Sankey's newsletter. And he had a casting call for a project. He's like, come to Toronto and jam with me. I'm going to select 3 magicians to come here and film a project. And I didn't have a lot of other magicians' input. I mean, I lived near Chicago, but I really only knew like a handful of magicians. Like Marshall Brodeen, who did TV Magic Cards and was Wizzo on the Bozo Show. He taught me a lot, but I mean, he was very supportive. Like everything was like great to him. And I really wanted like some constructive feedback. So I was like, and I had also just auditioned for Six Flags and I had gotten it. So I was like, what's the harm? I'll film these 5 things and send them to Jay Sankey. Worst case scenario, he sends me an email back saying what I need to improve on. And I get some notes from a master creator. I sent the videotape in April, didn't hear anything until July when I got an email from Jay asking if I would want to fly to Canada to be on the project.
Wow.
And he actually flew me and my mom to Toronto, and we filmed it. It's called Underground Jam. You can still find copies here and there floating around the internet. It was, I'm 30 now, so this was 13 years ago. It was filmed already.
Wow.
And I've used some of the stuff on the DVD since then, but at the time, that was like my main go-to working repertoire. And I'm still very proud of that material. And as a result of that, I got to become friends with Jay, and I've consulted on a number of Sankey Magic projects, and I'm a moderator on Inside Deception and in the Ask a Mentor section and all that. So, and Jay's inspiring because it's just like I was just flipping through the definitive Sankey the other day, and it's just like, you want to trick with a Q-tip and a creamer? Well, here you go. It's like, wait, what? And it's like
they're like toe to toe. There's no magician who has created more or can create more magic than Jay Sankey. Like,
well, and it's all of now, whether it's your style or it works for you is completely out of, that's completely hearsay. However,
No, but just like toe to toe, like if someone went garbage picking, like if you just gave
Yes.
me a basket of nonsense, like I would pick Jay Sankey in the magician draft of whatever,
Yes,
to
exactly.
come up to, like David Copperfield uses his effect. Like it's just like it's mind boggling.
Here's the
Like
thing, and I would recommend, and not just because um, Jay is a friend, and also because I've worked with Vanishing Ink and Joshua J and Andy Gladwin. But if you have a chance to get the definitive Sankey books, do it, because that stuff. Now, yes, it's curated, but it is all it's as much as curated as it can be. I mean, I can think of like 5 effects that I think are really decent that aren't in those books, and most of them came out after those books were published. But like, it's all of the same quality. Whether it's your style or your taste or whatever, it's how much he does with so little. Like, if you have a basic knowledge of card magic, you read one of the card magic chapters and you've got a whole new repertoire of stuff,
man,
based around the same principles.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's really, his material is also really approachable too. So for all those reasons, I recommend this. But anyway, so and shortly after that, I got to know Eugene Berger and did lessons with him, and we did lunch occasionally.
So let me just ask. Let me just interrupt. Like, did you just become a full-time magician? Was there any doubt about that? Did you just go right into that?
I was an idiot. Yes, I did 1 year of college and was like, well, I can make money. I'm making money doing shows, so I just kept doing shows. Now, here's the other thing. Let me make this very clear too.
That sounds right.
Let me make this very clear too. Shows are going great. I'm like, hey, this is going great. I'm 20 now. I've been out of high school a few years. I'm making money at this. I get my own apartment. I move into my first apartment in October of 2008. Yeah, nothing bad financially happened at the end of 2008, right, Jonah? Nothing bad happened at the. Yeah, I struggled for 3 years paying rent, getting gigs. Like I got through. I got through the recession as a full-time professional magician and didn't get to slinging burgers or anything. I did a lot of different stuff. I did psychic house parties where I did palm readings for everyone, and then a little mentalism show after, and that was like, I think, $20 a person. So while I couldn't book like a $200 house party show in my neighborhood, I could get a woman who had 10 friends to each pay $20 a person, each for a one-on-one palm reading, and then I'd said, I'll do a bonus psychic show for everyone as well, and that's how I got my work. I worked in my mentalism show. I got through it once. I know if there's ever a recession again, I'll be able to get through it again, especially knowing what I know now. But yeah, like I couldn't have had worse timing when it came to that stuff.
Wow.
But I made it through, and I've worked everything from restaurants to corporate work. It's the holiday season when we're recording this, so I'm booking a lot of corporate mentalism gigs. I'm doing. I did a show for 10 years with David Parr called The Magic Cabaret. Really, really proud of that work.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the shows that you're both doing now, and then I know you've done so many in the past, but maybe let's highlight some of the ones that can give people some context to Chicago and maybe some of the history as to where things have gone. So let's start with right now. So what are all of the current shows, like weekly or monthly, that you're in? And I will stop you when I have any questions about one of them.
That's fine. I've headlined and featured at the Chicago Magic Lounge a number of times. I've done the Close-Up Gallery. It's a phenomenal place. Go there if you ever have a chance. Whoever's working there. I'm super bummed. I'm working all weekend, and they're doing the Chris is back there. They're doing the Women in Magic weekend, where it's all women hosting, doing walk around in the Close-Up Gallery on stage. It's incredible. It's wonderful. It's a great lineup. So I try to get down there just to see friends whenever I can. David has a weekly show there now as well. But I love performing there. It's a great room. If you go, quick side plug, if anyone wants to go on my Instagram, at Joe Diamond Live, that's why I'm for all my all my social media. But if you go into my Instagram TV, there's a video. My good friend Bill Cook and I did a piece together. I challenged him to a wizard's duel in the middle of one of his performances there after I was on stage earlier.
I heard about this.
And the whole thing is on my Instagram TV. So go to Joe Diamond at Joe Diamond Live on Instagram and go through a couple Instagram TV clips, and you'll find that. That was really fun, really, really cool. So that weekly, I do a show called The 13th Hour, which is in a reportedly haunted mansion, which is turned into an arts park now. There are painters, musicians, photographers. I've got a studio on the second floor. It seats 13 people, and it's in industry speak, it's sort of a close-up, parlory mentalism.
Okay, so hold on. So let's talk about the location first. So you rent out this studio once a week?
It is monthly rent. I pay monthly rent on it. I have 12. I have that. That is my own personal artist space for.
Oh, so it's your space.
Yes. It is my
great.
space.
Okay, cool.
If you were to go there, go through the front doors, look to the right, you'd see all the plaques of all the different artists and residents there. When you look at the plaque that says 215, you'd see my name underneath there. So it's there year round. But I have a yearly lease with them, and I pay rent on those.
Very cool. So do you do stuff there when there aren't shows? You know, there's people that are thinking about doing shows, and people are always wondering where to do shows. So it's like, is this an advantage? Is this something that happens late in your career when you can like afford to rent out a place, or is this like great idea to do this? You know what I mean? Like, I'm very interested in this because this is new.
Yeah, you know what? There's, if you don't mind me plugging another resource, I know you're going to ask for resources later on.
Everything.
But the Well Attended podcast is great because there are some great people in there who have made venues, and I'm one of them. Well, I'm one of the people on the podcast. Not to say I'm great, sorry, but I have made a venue, and I use their ticketing system too. So basically what happened was I got the studio space just as kind of like a rehearsal space, and I was moving, and the place I was moving to, I wasn't going to have as much space to keep a lot of stuff. So rather than renting a storage locker for $500 a month, the rent on this was much cheaper, and I was like, oh, okay, I can take meetings here and everything. And after a year or two of having it, some people were asking if I was doing any shows before I was going on tour. I was going to be touring in Nashville and Orlando and a whole bunch of places, and I was going to be gone for a couple weeks. So I decided, you know what, I'll just do I can fit 13 people in here. I got in shares. I was like, okay, 13, that's a nice spooky number. I'll just, got a month till I go on the road. I'll do this the week before I leave, and I'll charge tickets for it, and yeah, that'll be fine. And it sold out within 24 hours. So I added a second show, and that sold out by the end of the week. So I was like, okay, when I come back, I'll do these monthly. And those were selling out. So I eventually transitioned. I've been doing it once a week. Yes. So for years, I kept my mailing list. I did shows, I did private bookings, and kind of built a clientele, or for lack of a better word, fan base. And and now I've been doing these shows. I mean, I haven't had to do the restaurants. I did restaurant work for a long time because I felt I had to. I felt like, I need to be in front of people. I need to be performing, and I need the weekly income. Now I've been doing shows there every week for the last couple years. And I actually this year took the leap and replaced one of my restaurant gigs with it, and it's been a year of sold out shows. I think there's only been 3 shows that haven't been sold out, which again, when it's only 13 people, it's not super hard to fill, but at $25 a person, plus I've got a premium ticket and a VIP ticket as well, so you can do the math. And yeah, I'm making more than I would have made at a restaurant.
And it's also weekly, so you're selling over 500 tickets a year, right? Over 600, yeah. It's like, it's a lot of tickets to still be moving, and it's also in a non-touristy area. There are people who do shows in like the Wisconsin Dells, or like touristy places. There's a town like Geneva, Wisconsin, where Tristan Christ is building a new magic theater, and he's been there for a long time. It's a great show. It's a very touristy area. For this to be happening in an area that's just kind of, it's literally like the second to last train stop. If you take the train from downtown Chicago out into the suburbs, it's like the second to last stop. Like, that's where this town is. So the fact that this has been embraced by this area, and it's been going on
for a good while now has been really, really encouraging. I'm actually working on a brand new show for that space. So it's again, same thing for 13 people in the space. The other thing too is through a variety of different things. I mean, I started off being billed more as a magician. I am more known as a mind reader in my area now, but I mean, I do mostly, I don't consider, this is so 2018 to me, I don't consider labels. I don't think of any of that. I try to just look at what fits the show, what fits the feeling I want people to get, because the current show, the 13th Hour, starts off with more traditional mind reading, but by the end, I've basically convinced a 21st century audience that we sent an object back in time before the show and we prove it. And that was the challenge of the show for me. It was, okay, what can I do that's not just time travel themed, but how can I do this for real? Tony Andruzzi said something great about bizarre magic. He said bizarre magic is making a ridiculous claim and then giving the audience proof.
Yes.
And he compared it a lot to Van Helsing from the Dracula story. And you think about it, you're like, and when I was younger, I didn't quite connect with that, but now that I'm older, I'm starting to see it. Van Helsing is a man of science, but when he's confronted with the supernatural, he's able to combat it because he knows about all these different arcane information and images and things like that. And he's given the proof, and he moves forward with that and is able to, beat it at the end, depending on which version of the story you're looking at. Now with other magicians have written about this. Darren Brown, in his book Absolute Magic, talks about how he would start off doing mentalism effects and then end his set with the floating ring and make it into a big thing about, positive thinking and energy and all this stuff. And he made the argument that, people always say, well, don't mix magic and mentalism, because if you do magic first and then you do mentalism, they might think it's sleight of hand. And he made the argument, well, if that's the case, if you do mentalism first and then do magic later, they're less likely to think it's sleight of hand or a trick or whatever. So I've always kind of kept that in the back of my head too. So I'll give you a full breakdown on the format of the show. If anyone wants to come see it, I would love for you to come see it if you're in the Chicagoland area.
And by the way, I will when I'm there next, and I will have to plan it well in advance to make sure I get.
It's about an hour from outside of the city, but the town itself is really great. Has a great downtown area and everything. So let me break it down. So when you get your tickets for the show, the tickets say to bring a watch. Doesn't matter if it works or doesn't, but bring a watch for the show. When people arrive, the building, I have to greet everyone at the door. The building is on lockdown after 5 p.m., and my shows are usually at 7 or 8 in the evening. So I have to greet everyone at the front door. I tell them where the restrooms are and everything. But when people arrive, I write their arrival times on envelopes. And I say, take these, put them in your pocket. They'll be important later. And I might do one or two things for people, ask them where they heard about the show, give them the history of the mansion. I've done tours there as well, so I know a lot about the history. We go up to the studio, and I give everyone water, and we sit down. It's actually almost like stadium seating. If you look on Facebook or my website, you'll see pictures of this. People are sat along the edges, so so everyone can see across the room. And this is great because they can actually feed off of each other's reactions too. If someone's reaction is just a simple mouth dropping open.
I love round table stuff.
But if I was just looking at them, think of this in a theater. If they're in the third row of a theater and they're stood up, and I tell that person something and their jaw drops open,
only you see it.
Only I see it. But now in this situation, everybody sees it. And it's more likely to happen since it's a very non-theatrical environment.
Yeah.
And the first phase, I do a card effect that's based on Max Maven routine, where I talk about our first experiment is going to be in the past, the present, and the future. And I say the show is called the 13th Hour because tonight's subject is time. And we're going to begin with an experiment in the past, the present, and the future. And it turns out a card that was selected in the past, in the present, and the future all turn out to be the same card. And I link it to Albert Einstein quote where he said, the only distinction between the past, the present, and the future is an illusion, however persistent. Then I go into a version of the new classic free will, which is where they pick 3 objects and then there's a prediction that says, but in my version, so let's say I was doing it with you, Jonah, at the end, you would read the prediction and it would say, Jonah has the key, Joe has the watch, and in the pocket is in the pen, or in the pocket is the pen. And I sell that as going into the future, seeing what happens, then coming back to the present to make a prediction.
Right.
And I'll actually do this line for you, Jonah, and I'll tell you what this segues into. Jonah, forget that you're a magician for a moment and really listen to this question. I'm going to ask you this question because it's a trick question. For real, do you think it's possible for you to know someone else's thoughts without ever having met the person, without the person speaking those thoughts out loud, and they are thinking the thoughts in a completely different time and place that you have never visited? Would you say that's possible?
Yes, but I feel like I figured it out. But otherwise, I would have said no.
Otherwise, you would have said no. I did warn you it was a trick question. Follow-up question: have you ever read a book?
Yeah, well, that would be the one that I was.
Yeah, because if you've read a book, you've done exactly what I've described. What I just described was paraphrased from Stephen King's book On Writing, where he talked about reading a book being the closest thing to both telepathy and time travel that we have. When you sit down and read a book, you are reading the author's thoughts without ever having met the author, without the author speaking the thoughts out loud, and they thought these things in a completely different time and place. What I'm getting at here, Jonah, is anything is possible if you lower your expectations enough. and now I pick up 3 books and I do a book test.
That's great.
And one of them is a Stephen King book, and so I've done that. Now I have 2 people think of names from their past, and rather than the typical mind reading thing, I tell them to imagine they go back in time before the show and whisper these names in my ear. And if you want to see the reactions to that, again, there's tons of I videotape the reactions each night in my show. You can see that on my website or my Instagram, again, at Joe Diamond Live. So we do that. I then I talk about testing the audience's intuition at this point and how time, you can hold a moment in time in a photograph, and we do a piece with a bunch of torn up photographs. I then do presentation of pendulums where people have keys at the end of ribbons, and I tell them to imagine it's an old grandfather clock swinging back and forth, and we talk about making a thought in their mind manifest in reality. And because everyone has keys on the ends of their ribbons, this segues perfectly into a key bending routine and sort of mind over matter. And at this point, we do a test with everyone's watches, and people are able to pull the stem out, spin them around, stop, and I've predicted the time that they've selected. There's one other twist to that, which I won't say, I won't spoil. You'll have to come to the show to see the twist for that one. Or if you see me, I'll be at Magi Fest later this year. If anyone sees me and they have a analog watch, I'll do my version for them so they can see it.
I'll bring one.
So yeah, that. And then finally, so in the middle, one thing I didn't point out is in the middle of the show, I have borrowed, I won't say what the item is, but I've borrowed an item, I've torn the item up, and I've let someone keep the item as a piece of the item as a receipt. And at the end of the show, I tell everyone to imagine we can send these 5 pieces back in time to before the show. We look at where they've been. We plunge the room into darkness. So think about this. You're in a creepy old mansion with a guy who's been reading your mind for the last hour, who says, we're going to do time travel for real now, no tricks. He plunges the room into darkness, tells you to imagine you can take those pieces of your object to before you arrived for the show and seal them all into envelopes. When I put the lights up, the objects are gone. They are gone. They've been under test conditions, out of my control. And when people look in the envelopes they got when they arrived downstairs, they are the pieces of the borrowed item, and they can check all the tears and they match. It is the exact same item.
Oh, that's awesome.
It took a long time to have everything in the show work. There's callbacks. There's things that, interconnect. And I'm really, really proud of this. I can honestly say I can't do the show in its entirety in any other venue. It is tailored especially to this building and this room. I've done pieces of it. I mean, I've done book tests and name divinations and other shows. Even with that same presentation, I'll usually use a different presentation. But
Joe, I have to tell you, I'm very worried. I'm very worried. I'm worried because I don't think we have 9 hours to talk because I love everything. This stuff is blowing my brain. And the thing is there's so many similarities between me specifically. You know, I do a close-up show with a little bit more than 13 people, but you know, the number is like 20 or 25. There's literally a part of the show about time travel. There's literally part of a show with a torn piece that ends up in an envelope at the end, which is a match.
Perfect. Now,
like
to
it's
be
like
fair,
crazy.
people have done this kind of thing before. Brian Brushwood has something. He has a great routine. It's online if you find it. He says this toaster oven is a time machine. And he takes someone's bill and puts it in there, and he says, "We're going to send it back in time." And the bill explodes. It gets convulsed in flames. And this is a great line. I wish I could steal it, but Brian, when the bill has been engulfed in flames, he's like, he looks at the guy and says, "No, really, your bill went back in time. Really, think about it. Your bill is now history." And I'm like, oh, that's so good. That's good.
Funny. So it's very cool. There's a few different things. So the first is I'm obsessed with the idea of a show for a small number of people. So that's something that I love that you're doing, and it's something that personally I'm going to be doing much more of. So that's very exciting for me. And what I also want to get into, and I want to talk about your other shows as well in a moment, but you know, it really feels like, and I mentioned this at the beginning when you were talking about your way into magic, but it feels so much that you're thinking about things differently along the lines of like the magic,
yeah,
right?
Well,
I keep seeing this, like you're like, it's so easy. Not so. Here's what I'm saying. Like once you come up with this thought of it's a show about time travel, all of these beautiful things come into place, but no magician decides that their whole show is about time travel, you know, because they're too obsessed with the opposite. It's about them and what you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, well, there's moments in the show, like the first half of the show is, again, I mean, when I broke it down, it sounds like a lot, but there's really only like 6 effects really in that whole hour, like routines. There are other effects along the way, but like, I tried to think about it from the inside out. You're locked in a room in a spooky old mansion with a guy who you've seen on TV and the radio who reads minds, and he claims he's going to like. What is that? What can that look like? I love going back and watching old Alfred Hitchcock Presents and The Twilight Zone and all these different kinds of things. I mean, all these people in magic go on and on about, motivating their magic and justifying this and that. And like, there's your mentalism has to be believable and all this stuff. There's an episode of The Twilight Zone where a guy flips a coin into, a homeless person's tray, and it lands on its side. And as long as that coin is on its side, he can read other people's minds. That's it. It's just this weird quirk, glitch in reality. At the end of the show, the coin falls and he's back to no longer hearing people's thoughts. There's a really cool other little twist about it. I can't remember what it's called. If you Google Twilight Zone Mind Reading Coin, I'm sure you'll find the title. And I know it's on Netflix. But there's a cool little twist in it, which I think many mind readers should. Anyone who wants to do any kind of just a mind reading effect in their show, watch this to get an idea of what you're tapping into when you're doing this kind of stuff. But
yeah, and also, it plays two sides. One is the side of like, you can do anything, you don't need justification. The other is the side of like, this is about being enchanted and romanced and thrilled and, like that.
Yeah. And exactly. I mean, David says that a lot. A lot of, lay people have a romantic idea of magic in the sense of they want it to feel like magic. They want when people buy a ticket, knowing there's only going to be 13 people, knowing this is a guy who claims to read their mind, there's something about time. You got to bring a watch. This is a Twilight Zone episode.
You're right.
From before they even have stepped foot into the show. Now I love when people bring someone and that person has no idea what they're in for. It's always a date. Like I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like it's like the guy, she has no idea.
first date too. What do you want to do?
One of them was.
Go see a magic
One of them
show.
was. I was like, wow, you just agreed to meet this random guy you matched with yesterday at a creepy haunted mansion with no idea what it was. This will be fun.
I mean, that relationship's gonna last long. I like it.
Well, there has been. I won't out them here, but there has been one guy. He's been to the show 3 times, each time with a different date. But this is apparently part of his what he called a foolproof plan. I was like, well, take that as you will. But yeah. So I mean, if anyone out there hasn't had a chance to look at any, we sang the praises of Jay Sankey. I'm gonna now sing the praises of Eugene Berger. If anyone out there has a chance to get the book Hauntings, it talks about him doing a show in a mansion in Evanston where him and his friends basically haunted the house and sold tickets and how they formatted it and everything. And it's a really cool. I mean, it's talking about exactly what we're talking about. And that book it's the first book Eugene ever put out. It's over 30 years old. So talk about ahead of its time. Now, yes, if you I don't want to do spirit magic or I don't want to do ghost magic or anything, don't worry about it being a ghost show or a mentalism show or a time travel show or something. It is an experience. It's building it from the ground up. And for me, socially and generationally, the proof in this is escape rooms. The pendulum has swung the other way. Everyone said technology was going to ruin us. No, it hasn't. It's just made us crave, the high tech has just made us crave the high touch more. Mm-hmm. Escape rooms are popping up everywhere. Kids, they're done with their phones and they're playing flip bottle. You can't get more low tech than a plastic bottle half filled with water. You can't. They're craving it. They're the fidget spinners, as goofy as they are. Yeah. It's something tangible that they can hold in their hands. We're human beings. It's going to take longer than a generation for that to go away. We crave something that's of the moment. That's more an experience. People are buying more experiences.
I love the experiential trend where magic is going, and I love it. So let's talk about. So we spoke about this show. What's one of the other shows that you're doing right now? Currently?
So that's the only ticketed show I'm doing currently. I am working on a new show for 2019 called Mystic. I've been doing previews of that. That'll be on my website when that's up. Again, it's going to be in the studio for 13 people at a time. It has a theme.
I love it.
I've noticed people have really enjoyed, and even lay people, magicians are like, oh, how much do they care? How much do they care? I've had lay people come up and say, oh, they love the time travel aspect. I do have another show I do around Halloween called Paranormal, which is completely different. I have about 4, I guess Mystic will be the 5th hour of material of stand-up shows. Each show is about an hour, and each show has relatively different content. There's some overlap. For example, mentalists know if someone writes a name on a piece of paper, you can tear it up or not tear it up or whatever, divine the name or divine a word from a book or unlock someone's code. These rely on the same kinds of techniques. So if you have someone think of a word rather than a name, that can play as a different effect, even if you're using the same methods. So I do rely on the same methods for a lot of stuff. I'll be completely honest about that, but I have different presentations for a lot of them. The paranormal show was something I worked really heavily with David on, and it has a couple sideshow stunts. The first piece in that show is the human blockhead. Because in that show, I'd noticed some people were coming. The show was called Paranormal. And I noticed some people were coming and they were expecting a magic show. Some people assumed I was a medium. Some people, and as I said, it was, 13 and older. So when I came out and just did, a spooky little card trick with a rhyme, it was okay. But no one knew what was going on. I realized when I started doing, and the whole reason I wrote my human blockhead routine was to sort of reset the audience, to make them go, oh, whatever you thought this was, it's not that. For people looking for a trick, it's not a trick. Good luck trying to find a method. There is no method. For people who thought I was a psychic, well, it's you can't get more, not psychic than a physical sideshow stunt. And it was and of course it's a little gross and a little scary, so that justifies the 13 and older rating.
What is your approach to believability? It's been a while since on the podcast we've touched on this idea of disclaimers and never mind whether you should or you shouldn't, but the question really is like, when an audience comes to your show, what are you hoping for?
Let me make this very clear about disclaimers. They're dumb. Stop doing them. But I'll bring this around. I think I think there is a way.
And sorry, just to interject, a disclaimer, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, is before your show, and many mentalists do this, before their show, they say, nothing in the show you're about to see is real. Everything is,
or my favorite, a lot of magicians and mentalists have heard this or said this themselves.
The combination
I use my 5 normal senses to create the illusion I'm talented. Oh, wait, no, that would be more truthful. Sorry. I use... that's all I hear when they say I use my 5 normal senses to create the illusion of a 6th sense. It's like, no, you're creating the illusion you have talent. Like, it's not, and also I think it's super condescending to the audience. Because let's be real. Most of the people who give these disclaimers, it's like, don't worry, no one was thinking you were psychic, Mr. Hippity Hop Rabbits. But I think whether one of the things that was illuminating to me about it is it does nothing. If they believe you, then it does nothing, and if they don't believe you, then it does nothing. So so here's. Let me talk about my other show, Dreamcatcher, which I do and I will come back to believability. I have it. I actually just wrote this in my notebook recently, and I have it open right here. So I'll come back around to this. So in my Dreamcatcher show, I'm doing basically what's known as a question and answer act in mentalism. Normally, people write down questions. The mentalist divines what the question is and whose it is, and then answers the question. My take on this is I do dream interpretations. I have people think of dreams. I divine what those dreams are, and then I give a reading based on that dream and interpret it at the end. And I did a show where I did this at the end. It's very solid, very powerful. There's pictures of me and video of me on my website and social media of doing this act. Q&A is very, very strong, and a lot of people do it extremely well. I've been lucky enough to study with and talk about this with Chris Carter and Ross Johnson, some masters at Q&A. And I did a show where I did that, and I also did a spoon bending routine. And after the show, same show, not just the same material, like the same show, the same group of people I am packing up from the show I just did. One person comes up to me and says, okay, so the dreams thing, I know that's all psychology and probably body language. I know you're blindfolded, but there's got to be something to that. But for the spoon bending, what kind of energy? Are you using chi? Are you focusing? Is it positive energy? Is it negative energy? That person goes away. And no joke, immediately after, someone else comes up and goes, okay, I know the spoon bending is a trick. I don't know if it's like sleight of hand or heat sensitive spoons, or they seem to be real spoons. I examined them, but maybe there's got to be a trick to that. But the mind reading thing I know is real. Is that more of a skill you developed, or is that? So 2 people, for one of them, that part was bullshit. And that part was real. And it was the complete opposite. And they saw the same show.
Wow.
So I think David said this years ago, David Parr, everyone's getting a different show. Everyone's having a different experience.
Everyone's getting a different show. That's so true.
Now, coming back to believability, so many mentalists talk about this. And it's like, make sure it's grounded, make sure it's this, make sure it's that. And sure, that can work for some people in certain situations as an exercise. But I just keep seeing them trying to put limits on their creativity and their performance and all this other stuff. And it makes it seem like if they don't walk away thinking you have some sort of gift, you have failed. For me, I have tried to remove. Yes, you need some belief. You need people to believe the coin transfers from your right hand to your left hand. You need them to believe that that's a free choice. You need that on some level. On some level.
I mean the macro believability.
But the macro believability of, is he really psychic? Is he this? Is he that? I'm trying to take that out of my creative process. I'm trying to take the word belief and believability, trying to take that out of it, and instead putting in a phrase. And the phrase is, engaged with the premise. Now, I know, we'll just go back to the time travel thing for a moment. I know people are thinking time travel, yeah, right, the whole time. But again, like as Tony and Druzy says, I'm giving them proof. I'm getting them there. And we're going down the rabbit hole together. When they're in the car and it's over and everything, belief is all about when they're in that car, they're like, okay, he is psychic. It's this, it's that. And I think you're just setting, some people have that, and that is a side effect of their performances. But if that's all you're going for, there was, I don't know if you remember the TV show Phenomenon a couple of years ago that Uri Geller hosted with Chris Angel, and they had on a couple mentalists. And
that sounds crazy. I've never heard of that.
Look it up. It aired in America. Mike Super was on
What's it called?
It's called Phenomenon.
Phenomenon? Oh my Lord.
Mike Super was on it. Jim Callahan was on it. Mike Super won it, actually.
Take a look at that.
And it was basically, so Uri
won it? It was a competition?
Yes. So Uri Geller did all these, like the next Uri Geller shows in all these different countries. Angela Funovitz was on it. And they had on like 10 mentalists, and each week they came out and performed something. One of them did some version of Smash and Stab. One of them did some version of PK Touches. One of them did some version of metal bending, whatever. And then Chris Angel and Uri Geller then judged the performance, American Idol style. and then you could call in and vote for who you wanted to win. There was some ridiculousness.
So you're saying it was Chris and Yuri's Fool Us.
Basically.
Okay.
And this aired on NBC primetime.
Mentalism style. Chris and Yuri's Fool Us Mentalism edition.
So anyways, there were some people who weren't as believable as others, and some were better entertainers. But one person did I don't remember their name, but they did some big, massive thing with a pendulum where they dowsed for a matchbox with a number written on it that was selected out of another set of numbers. And then they divined how many matches were inside the box. It was a very clinical, quote unquote, real, and if, with a pendulum, I'll argue, believable premise, but it just wasn't engaging. And who like entertainment, all this other stuff. Again, this is all subjective. Engaging is not. You are either engaged or you are not. And again, you can get into the minutia with what entertainment means, and Ken Weber has a wonderful description of it in Maximum Entertainment. But like when it comes to particularly to mystery performance, magic, mentalism, bizarre magic, there needs to be that level of being engaged with the premise. And in my opinion, and in my experience, the people who believe in like psychics the most are like, they don't react at a mentalism show. They just go, yeah, we know this is how the world works. Right. Yes, we know this. Right. Yeah. I had a dream of this happening. It happened 2 days ago. You picked a word out of a book he was thinking of. Yes, I know.
Yes, this show sucks.
So for the people who are like, it's more believable and more people believe in this,
it's just like a science show. It's like science class.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so believability like doesn't matter. You have to be engaged with the premise. And
no, but what's so cool here is that change of thought and that change of mind, because that's something that I'm stuck on all the time, is this idea of like, well, are they going to not believe it? What if they don't believe it? But the real answer, particularly paired with what you were talking about earlier about things tending towards the experiential, is what we have right now is this ability to just say, like, look, magic, going to see a magic show or going to be at a magic show is just like going to see a movie. Agreed. Let's all shake our hands. Great. And now the question is, how do I make the most amazing movie ever? Right? Like, let's all just forget that we're worried about, like, what do they think about who, if I can really do.
It's so limiting. Like, I'll be honest, one of the biggest inspirations for me in the last few years and how I structure these shows, and my my girlfriend jokingly calls me a local celebrity. Because again, like in the area where I do shows, I don't live in that area anymore. We actually live in a different area. But it got to the point where
Because it was getting too hard. I'd go to grocery stores and people would notice me.
It wasn't that extreme, but it was enough to be like, look, I just want to sit here and have my coffee and read my book. I don't.
Oh, that's funny.
And like when you're. And on one level, yes, you gotta be a magician 24/7, especially if you're a mind reader. Oh, this guy, he can do something. Here, okay, do you have now in that situation, if I unlock that person's iPhone or something, that's a fan and a potential client and a potential ticket buyer, a potential booker. That's nothing but good. But there are times I just want to sit down and have a meal with my girlfriend. And where we live now, is a, you know, I just started working a restaurant about 15 minutes away, and it's kind of a perfect situation. But for a while, I was really hesitant to work in the area we're living in because I'm so established in another area, and I kind of like just being able to go over to, you know, the local coffee shop and just being able to sit down and
not be mentalist Joe Diamond, but coffee shop goer.
But anyways, on a much smaller scale, much smaller scale, I'm kind of the best way to sort of describe it and to go into what I'm going to go into. It's kind of a small scale, small town Darren Brown. That's basically where I'm at. And in his Penguin lecture or his interview, he talks about how their structure about the audience is about the audience. They know what I do. They know their skill set. And now it's like, okay, 2,000 people are locked in a room with Darren Brown, who's known to mess with your head. What happens? And that's sort of like he said that's their starting point for writing the stage shows. And I realized that's kind of my starting point for what I'm doing. It's 13 of us.
Yeah,
I might know
Joe Diamond, the number 13. Joe Diamond, mental, mystery, mental. Here we go.
Yeah,
right?
Mystery, mentalism.
That's what they got.
I mean, and again, like I don't. Like for me, it's again like I have also purposely, and this is also from the Darren Brown lecture. He says he purposely didn't go with mentalist or anything. They went with psychological illusionist for like one radio show, and that kind of stuck for a while. But in those early TV shows, they purposefully didn't give him a title, and his reasoning for it was he said, you know, if you say you're a mentalist, you're saying you are one of a group. You're one of a group. Whereas those early shows, it was Darren Brown Trick of the Mind or Darren Brown Mind Control, his first few. And there was the little thing at the beginning, which again, now I wouldn't consider his now famous opening. This show fuses, I think it was like magic, psychology, suggestion, and showmanship. There are no actors or students. For me, that's not a disclaimer. For me, that is setting up the world. That is a preface.
That's explaining how this filming works and how this show works.
That is a narrative. That is an exposition of a story. That is Marley was dead to begin with. Here's the thing you need to know. And by the way, everyone should go out and read A Christmas Story or A Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite books. And he says several times, like, remember Marley is dead for this next part. You have to really drive that home. And it's you can tell, I don't know if anyone listening to this or even you know this, Jonah, Charles Dickens, who wrote A Christmas Carol, was an amateur magician. And if you look at his writing, it comes out because, again, what do? I need you to remember this hand is empty. Otherwise, nothing is going to be impressive. You need to sign this card. You need to know this is the only card in the world. Otherwise, nothing's going to be amazing. And in A Christmas Carol, he says, Marley needs to be dead. You need to know that. I know I keep bringing this up, but you need to know this. Otherwise, nothing will seem wondrous. You know, so
there's two things I want to touch on in this this idea of like coming to the show and not worrying about it. So there's two things here that really showed up. So the first thing in talking about you and your show and the way that people feel before, and Darren Brown as well, which is that, you know, and by the way, this is also a conclusion that I come to all the time when watching J.J. Abrams things, particularly Fringe. And it's this idea that, you know, the mystery and the anticipation and the discomfort and the angst and all that all the tension there is in the blank space, right? Like if you say I am like, 13 people were locked in a room, it's a mystery. So with this guy named Joe Diamond, he does this thing, you got to bring a watch, you got to like, that is more anticipation than, oh, it's this incredible show where this magician does 12 card tricks at the table and we each leave with and you go, oh, nice, that's what I'm going to see. Or really what I'm talking about is the descriptiveness and how when we're playing with mystery and we're playing with that, and same as Darren Brown, like we're playing with how is he getting in my head? It's that blank space that fills that.
Well, and going back to Darren Brown, so many people copy the wrong thing about Darren. It's like, oh, he can do this psychologically. I'll do this psychologically too. It's like, but that's not all that's going on. I mean, again, when you talk about building a world, the formats of his stage shows where the first half is more traditional, mentalism show, and the second half is, part spook show, part hypnosis, and it gets weirder and everything. He has to get the audience on his side before they get into him shoving a needle through someone's hand or, something like that. Like there's a structure and there's a progress of everything. And someone else to really look out for in this, and they've got their show on their Penguin Lecture and their shows online, is Ross Johnson. His show is a complete build. He starts with psychological forces, then he doesn't say, I use psychology, I use this, I use that. He says, okay, this is more psychological than it is psychic. He starts with psych forces with the audience. Now he does like a lie detector thing. Okay, now he's doing something with cards. Okay, is it poker tells? Wait, he just named that card out of nowhere? Now he's blindfolding himself with duct tape. Now he's picking up all this stuff about these objects. Now he's bringing someone up, and he's getting like their phone number. And it's a growth. And it builds. It gets. It goes up. I mean, a lot of people say, well, how do you make mentalism not boring? How do you, it's the same effect over and over. That's a way. There's a build. There's a structure to it.
It builds from before they get to the show till like the moment they leave, and like you were saying, the car afterwards. So I love that. The other aspect that I wanted to pull from what you were talking about, particularly in this idea of like, because I'm spending a lot of time now thinking about the blank space in between, when you buy a ticket to a magic show and when you go, right? Or when you decide you want to go to a magic show and then you buy a ticket, or when you see it, all of that. And what's interesting is also how valuable the anticipation is. When you're going on a vacation, half the fun of me going to Magi Fest is the next 2 months or the last month or whatever of me feeling so excited about Magi Fest, going to my first match. I don't even know what it's going to be like. All of this dream. When I go, it's going to be nothing like it. This is the same as when you have a vacation, when you go traveling, whatever. You dream, you say, oh, I'm going to Mexico. This is what Mexico is going to look like. This is what it's going to be. And you get there, and obviously it's nothing like what you thought. So you now have 2 vacations. You have the first one, the imaginary one, that you get to be all excited for. And then you have the second one, the actual one. And it's the same thing for a magic show, right? You buy a ticket and you have 2 experiences. You've got the whole one where we're going to a magic show. What does this mean? And adding things like bring a watch, and there's
that, people. And like for some people, some people in my area, for me, my favorite thing is when people say, well, what do you call yourself? For me, I've won. Like that's the goal. Now, I'll sometimes jokingly say, and this is shameless branding here. And this is the other thing too. A lot of it comes down to simply branding. It's not even an artistic choice; it's purely a commercial choice. But when they say, "What do you call yourself?" I say, "Oh, Joe Diamond." It's another way to get my name into their heads. And again, like when people call to hire me, they're not looking for.
So what do you? When someone says, "What do you call yourself?" You say, I don't. Other people call me.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll usually say, I'm like, well, some people, because I've even had people say, well, this isn't really magic. And what they mean is there's no rabbits out of hats. They've got a very narrow range of what they feel the word magic and magician means, ironic.
But it's like so our job as magicians to blow that mind and expectation out of the water instead of going there and just like delivering the expectation.
The people who are like, well, I call myself a A mentalist. Well, congratulations. No one knows what that is. Well, I call myself a mind reader, and I've used that a fair amount for good and bad. I mean, the upside with that is it's at least interesting, but the downside with that is people are instantly saying "read my mind," and they're instantly in that puzzle mentality. Which I don't care if you're a magician, mentalist, whatever. The first rule is don't make it about the puzzle. Don't make it about a challenge. Yeah. And the problem with that, at least for me, and in the area I'm in, it instantly sets it up as a challenge if it comes up socially. Now, if someone buys a ticket, that's a whole other thing. They know it's a description of what they are known for. My favorite title was when I was doing the Magic Cabaret with David Parr in Chicago for a number of years, and she called us occult aficionados. I like. And I'll even say this to people. I'll say, the Examiner called me an occult aficionado. I love that because occult means secret or hidden, and an aficionado means expert or knower.
I've been playing.
So it literally means secret knower.
Cult aficionado. Occult
aficionado. OCCULT.
Occult aficionado. That's great. I was thinking about definitions like that for magic, and I was because it's a little different than mentalism. And I was playing with it's not as concise. I'm not there yet, but just the idea that magicians teeter with the edge of reality, right? So just that idea. But anyways, I really love that. I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about that David Parr show, working with David Parr. Before that, because it seems like we are almost dancing around an idea that you mentioned to me offline, and we just absolutely have to talk about. And you mentioned it in terms of 3 different categories, but I just want to start at the one category that blew my mind, and it's this concept of a ritual. And it's categories of doing magic or types of tricks. And we'll talk about in a minute how mixing and matching these different types and the other types can be of value in a show. But let's just start with, what is a ritual type, and then what are the other 2 types of tricks?
So for me, a ritual effect is it's a formula. It's A plus B equals C. And again, this is for my own use. I know it's not a perfect description of what the word ritual means and its background and everything. This is just a classification title that I use. For me, a good example of this effect is something I do that Joshua J. called Diamond Jacks. It's based on Dr. Stanley Jack's effect in Tarbell called the Good Luck Purse. And what it is a selected sign card is lost in the deck. You take out a little purse, and inside the little carved Buddha. You put the Buddha on top of the deck. You shine a light on the Buddha. You shine the light on the purse. You open up the purse, and now the selected sign card is folded up inside the purse. For me, that is a ritual. It's step 1. And the way I present it is we need to make you a good luck charm. Step 2 is you need a unique object. Here, sign your name on this card so it's unique. Step 2 is we have to lose it. All right. And here's my good luck charm. It's a Buddha. Step 3 is we have to find it. My great-grandmother gave me this. I don't know why. She wasn't Buddhist, but she was weird. She collected all sorts of things like this. I shine the light on the deck. I shine the light on the purse. My hands are empty. Open up the purse. Inside is the card folded up. To me, that is something that's a ritual. It's got some symbols, and I use this a lot with my haunted key routine, symbolism, a lot of these kinds of things. It is a lot of magicians and mentalists talk about process and procedure mentalism and all this stuff, and so much of that can be explained away as a ritual. The 21 card trick could totally be presented as a ritual. It used to be, as a matter of fact. If you look at its background in the Book of Saints and its original form and everything, it was a type of ritual. So you can see it as that. You don't need to bring a lot to it. It already is a ritual in many ways. So that's the way I look at stuff. The other 2 formats I look at it is Carissa Hendricks, and David Parr. They each said each of these respectively. Carissa said, card tricks are jokes we already know the punchline to. And I realized most magic is that. Most magic is a joke. And what I mean by that, it's not a blow-off. It is a setup and a payoff. A joke is a setup and a payoff. I broke my arm in 3 places. Setup. Don't go in those places. Payoff. Pick a card and sign it. Setup. It's in my wallet. payoff. Now you can do that same effect, and if you can change that to make it seem more ritualistic, of course, and you can also change that same format to make it seem more of like a one-act play, which David talks about. There's characters, there's a plot, there's a conflict, and you can put this around a card effect. So with these 3 formats, you could do 3 pick a card tricks as a routine, and all 3 tricks would seem completely different, would have a completely different vibe about them, purely in the way that you've decided to categorize them and move them forward with their premise. Which again, we're coming back to that, being engaged with the premise.
See, it's very funny. So just to put in perspective, I had tricks categorized in 3 ways, which is very, very similar. And the ways that I had it, which does not clearly articulate it as well as yours does, but my 3 ways were: does not have a presentation, which is when you say, name any card, name any number, and then you count it. Or you say, watch your card. Okay, now it's not here, and now it's over there. So it was with no presentation. Then it was with a presentation about like just life or the world, and that was the one that was more theatric. And then the last one was like, someone has magic powers, you or me, or right, and it's like the display of magic power. So I think the ritual one breaks a little bit, but it's pretty close on the magic powers, but the others are similar. Like, it really makes sense. You can either perform a card trick and it's not about anything, it's just about the trick, or it can be about the theater, the monologue or the interaction you're having with someone, or, the theater of it all, and the people are the characters in the play, or it can be about, the mysticism of it all, or the, the magic, capital M magic of it all.
Yeah, so many people latch on to Eugene Berger's work, and again, I think they copy the wrong things when they copy his work, which is, I mean, a lot of people when they Eugene was so great. He was so warm, and every time you sat with him at and just having lunch or over a deck of cards or whatever, it felt like when he talked to you, he was talking to the only person in the entire world. He told me something at lunch once, which really stuck with me, and it was about his wonderful presentation of the cosmic thread. And it's on YouTube. It's out there. Pretty much everyone has seen it. If you haven't, look it up. It'll be the first thing you find. And he told me that when he would go to the restaurant, he would go to a house party or something, he would only bring 1 or 2, maybe 3 spools of thread, because he needed to, without going into methods, you need to use, it's just easier if you have 3 spools of thread and use each one for each piece, we'll say. But he was able to do the piece 3 times. He said, I'll bring that with, but I'll just go around and I'll do Mullica Wallet. I'll do the spelling card trick. I'll do my top change routine. Like, I'm a close-up magician. I've done sponge balls. But for the people who are really into it, only the worthy get to see the torn and restored thread. And I love that. I love that. Yeah, no, I'm talking about, these. He had another great story, which was he got to this one house party and everyone was just high out of their minds already. Like it was some of them were drunk, some of them were stoned, some of them had popped pills. Like they were all over the place, and he was trying to make it work for 15 minutes with all of his stuff. And then he stopped and realized, Eugene, the only person not having any fun here is you. And so he just went into his Chicago bar material, like the spelling trick and cutting 10 and the bill transpo, which are very, arguably his goofier presentations, where he is much more mischievous and much more of a trickster spirit in those performances. If you look at his Magical Voyages videos, that first video where he's performing for a group at the bar, he's even making jokes about saying, hold out your hand. Oh, no, the one with the nice watch, please. And again, this is the people, the guru people put on the hill of, oh, he did this and he brought out the symbolism and magic and everything. It's like, yes, but he also knew when he was working a bar mitzvah and brought 50 hat tears.
Totally.
This is a great story too, real quick. Because I don't think he wrote about this anywhere. He was getting ready to go to, he decided he was going to stop doing bar mitzvahs. And the way he stopped is he upped his prices. But in the areas he worked, people had money. Where Eugene lived and the restaurants he worked at, these were the high end places in Chicago, in the suburbs. And he was doing the way he phrased it, he's like, I got booked. I got contacted to do a booking for a bar mitzvah in Northbrook. He's like, I added a 0 to my price, and they said okay. So yeah, he's getting paid a crap ton of money, but he's got to go and perform for 14-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't know why. Something told me to put the hat tears in my bag. He had just gotten a new shipment of them, and he had I forget what the number was, but it was between 50 and 100. And he just put all of them in his bag. Normally he'd put 10 or 20 in his bag, but he just put all of them in his bag. He got there and it was crazy. There was music, there was this, there was that. And he's like, how am I going to make this work? And so he's like, well, I'll just start doing the hat tear. And so he asked him to bring some people over to him, and he did the hat tear. He tore it up and became a bonnet. He put it on the kid's head, and he did it silently and looked up, and another kid was behind them. And the kid just said, me next. So he reached in his box, took out the stocking cap hat tear, did that, gave that kid a stocking hat. And now one of the parents was up and says, do me next. Eugene Berger basically was a glorified balloon twister, but with hat tears for the entire 2-hour party. He just had a line of people and just did the hat tear over and over and over and over again. Now, for me, there's a lot to unpack from that story. First of all, there's that intuition aspect of something, you know what?
Bring a back up. Or whatever.
Bring that. Bring the 80 hat tears, just in case. It's so random. So random. And he's and he admitted if he didn't have those, he doesn't know what he would do, what he would have done. And he got a tip at the end of the night too. So again, there was a point where it's okay, time to do the hat tear for 2 straight hours. So I think there's that, and then performing silently, knowing your material, knowing your audience, commercially. I think there's a lot to unpack.
There's so much there, and particularly the thing that's coming so clearly, which is what you had first mentioned, is just this idea of knowing who you are, who you have to be when you have to be that person. And that's not always something that comes up in magic, but when it does, it's... Oh, yeah.
Again, I keep coming back to it because I just rewatched a lot of Eugene's videos, and on his Magical Voyages videos, on the last one, I watched these all the time as a kid, and so I hadn't, revisited them in quite a while. But Tommy Wonder asked him to give a list of things without which it would be difficult to succeed as a magician. What is absolutely necessary to succeed as a magician? And Eugene was like, it doesn't have to be a list. I think it's just one thing. To succeed as a magician, I need to know who I am, who this magician is. And, he's like, to be honest, when I was a kid, I didn't have much of an idea of who I was. And when I was 39, I had a better sense, but still not a clear sense. But it's a journey of self-discovery. You're constantly learning about yourself. Forget method. I can just look at an effect or a presentation or a prop and just know that doesn't fit me, or I can be in the dealer room at Abbott's and be like, that's really clever. That's wonderful. Yeah. I might buy it to support the creator, but I might not do it. Usually I've got a good sense where I can see someone perform something and instantly go, oh, I know exactly how I'll use that. I know where I'll use it. I know the presentation. I know that it clicks. Sometimes I just like the effect and I have to sit on it for a while and wait.
We're going to start tending towards a wrapping up, but there's one thing that I want to do before we get near that is you said that you have an audio card trick. So if people can get a deck of cards, if they're listening, I'm sure. So
yes.
Just get a chunk of cards.
It does not have to be a full deck.
You know what? That's perfect because I'm sitting around a magic house, and
in fact, you'll only need 10 cards. They can be
3,
cards,
4,
playing
5,
cards,
6, 7, 8,
3,
9,
6, 9, 10.
And they're all ace of spades. Is that okay?
They can be,
I'm joking.
It doesn't matter if there's a joker or whatever. Sure, the trick's over. Your card's the ace of spades. So this is going to be a ritual to awaken the magician in you and all the listeners. And if you've ever looked at the Rider-Waite tarot cards, there's the magician card. Illustrated by Pixie Coleman Smith. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but the thing I love about the magician card is that it's non-gender specific. It's not clear whether it's a male or a female in the figure of that card. So it really represents all of us. It can be anyone and everyone. It represents the best version of ourselves. And because deep down, we all wish we had more control over our lives. We all wish we were magicians. So this will be a ritual to awaken the magician in all of us. Now, you can start mixing up the cards in your hand, Jonah. If anyone's listening, grab 10 cards and follow along with this. This will be worth it, I promise. I've gone through a lot of these kinds of effects, and I make sure to only work on the ones that I feel are worth it. And this is my take on something that I think is worth it.
Question. Am I going to have to rip these cards?
No, you will not have to rip these cards. No.
Great. Okay, perfect.
I have done that, but that's
because these are Jerry's nuggets I'm shuffling. So.
No. Oh yeah. You will not have to tear them up. You'll just need 10 cards. Now, is there anything I can know about your cards right now, Jonah?
Well, you know they're not all ace of spades. I said that was a joke, but barring that,
this is true.
You don't know anything.
There is one thing I know about your cards, and I know about everyone else. I know you have 10 of them.
Right.
Pretty obvious. I told you to get some. So let's make this hard. Get rid of some cards. Now, don't get rid of just one. Get rid of at least two. But at the same time, don't get rid of too many either. If you have just one card in your hand, it won't be impressive. So make sure you have at least like 4 cards left in your hand to work with. So this will still be relatively impressive. Okay, so get rid of them. You don't have to tell me how.
I'm already impressed. This is great.
You don't have to tell me how many you're getting rid of. And the people listening, they can get rid of as many as they'd like. And you can give the cards in your hand one more mix. So you have an undetermined number of cards in your hand. You might know the number. You might not. I definitely don't know the number. When you're done shuffling, hold them in dealer position. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Pick up the packet and look at the bottom card. This will be your card, so do not forget it. Do not forget it. Otherwise, this whole ritual will be pointless.
Done.
Got it? Okay. Now we're going to cast a spell. And we're going to spell the word magician. Here's how. Take the top card. Don't look at it. Just take the top card and move it to the bottom. Have you done that?
Yes.
That's M, the first letter in the word magician. Take the next top card, move it to the bottom. That's A. Keep going with me, Jonah. That's G, I, C, I, A, N. Now, again, everyone listening has a different number of cards. You have a different number of cards. So there's no way we could know where your card is currently.
Definitely not.
We're going to do one more thing to complete the ritual. Again, if you've ever looked at the Rider-Waite tarot deck designed by Pixie Coleman Smith, you'll notice the magician has one hand pointed above their head towards the heavens and one hand pointed towards the earth. That's because they're actually saying, as above, so below. So we're going to do that ritual right now. Take the top card and deal it to the table. Have you done that?
Yes.
That's as above. Say it, as above.
As above.
Take the new top card and move it to the bottom. Have you done that?
Yes.
Say so below.
So below.
Perfect. Do it again. As above.
As above.
Deal a card to the table. So below.
So
move the top card to the
below.
bottom. And keep doing this till you're down to
As
one
above.
card. As above, so below.
As above.
So below. As above. When you're
As
down to one card,
above.
don't look at it. It's bad luck. Just hold that last card between your hands when you're done.
Oh, I'm done.
And to complete the ritual, say the name of your card out loud.
The 7 of clubs.
That's it. You're now a magician. I can prove it. You are now holding your card in your hand. Take a look.
That was so cool. That was awesome. Is that
That's
an
fun.
original effect?
It is my take. I will be very open about this. It is my presentation on something that is from Card College Lightest. It is.
Whoa.
It was originally called the Einstein card trick, I believe.
Oh, love it.
Lightest is the green book.
The Einstein card tricks. Okay.
But if anyone out there would like to if you already have that book and want to go through the details of it, or if anyone wants to play around with this presentation, by all means, feel free to. The thing I like about this one, especially when doing it for other magicians, is it's over right when it's getting going. Like right at the moment where like magicians who have done this kind of thing before, they're like, okay, now it's getting, wait, I'm down to one card already? It's done already? Wait, what?
Totally. There's two things that got me about this, really. The first is the eliminating of cards made it really baffling, because for math tricks, that's usually a big no-no. And then
you have to use 6.8 cards, otherwise the trick won't work.
Yeah, and the next one that really started getting me was that first phase when you were like, you would agree with me that I couldn't possibly know where your card is, and I'm like, well, yeah, well, yes, I would agree with you. You don't even know how many I have, so that was crazy. So,
exactly.
Good. That was awesome. So, great trick. Okay, so let's start wrapping up towards the end of the episode, and there's a few different wrap-up questions. So, and by the way, you know this because you listen to some episodes of the podcast.
I love the podcast.
It's very cool
I've been
to
listening
me,
to a ton.
I always forget, but I always like to mention it when I remember, because it's just so cool and self-fulfilling. I don't know, but it's just pretty cool to me. But anyways, so we have a few wrap-up questions. So the first is the endless chain. So in order to get the podcast to go on for eternity, who would you recommend that we have as our next guest, or as a guest that you recommend?
If I had him on my radio show, he's wonderful. Again, I've known him for years. I'll shoot you his contact info and let him know that you'll be reaching out to him. Jay Sankey. Jay is a wonderful.
Yeah, I already spoke to him at an event, and he said yes. So I'll get it done.
Cool. All right, I'll give you a couple others. I brought him up as well. Ross Johnson.
Love to.
He's. A lot of people in the industry don't know him unless they're in mentalism. His penguin lecture, I will argue, is the best penguin lecture out there, because he is. If you want to do professional mentalism, even if not, it's find me one other professional mentalist who's done this for 50 years, and has put 3 kids through college with like his. He got so successful, he quit his job of being a teacher with benefits and everything because he had so much work as a mentalist. He's done it all. He's a walking encyclopedia, but he knows his act inside and out. It's a solid, and he's got great stories. You'll have to ask him about the. You'll have to ask him about the time he was on the bill with a urinating bull.
I will.
That's a great story. Great story. And again, just someone who's actually made a living with this stuff of, performing for people and so forth. Another full-time performer who I'll recommend was on my radio show as well. Christopher Carter. I don't think there's anyone. I think him and Ross might be tied for people who the amount of times someone has done the question and answer act. I think the two of them might be tied because they do it all the time.
I love it. Those are great.
And they're great. I've seen them both perform the act live too, and it's great. Fun fact about Christopher Carter: before it was called this, he invented Anniversary Waltz.
Oh wow!
He invented the original effect. I think it was called like Cold Fusion. Published it in a magazine, and Doc Eason revamped the handling. So if you look in the original credits of the original publication, it says it was very heavily inspired by Christopher Carter.
That's awesome.
And he's always touring, he's always traveling, but it's worth it to get him on the phone for an hour to talk. It's great. My good friend David suggested Christian Cadrigal, so I would definitely recommend talking to him. He does the San Francisco Ghost Hunt. And finally, my other best friend in the world, Bill Cook.
Yes.
He's about Masters of Illusion, Fool Us. He has lots of time to kill on his when he's touring cruise ships. So if he's got a good Wi-Fi connection on a ship, he can talk and talk about everything from being on TV to being on TV in Italy, being on tour with Jeff McBride in Canada, China. Really great stories. You might want to ask him about the Sarlacc pit story about him and I. Actually, you know what? No, don't ask him about that one. That's not safe for the podcast.
I will ask it offline. The next section is the sort of the one about what's going on right now. So is there something, or what is something in 2018, 2019 magic world that you like, and something in the 2018, 2019 magic world that you don't like?
I love magic. It's given me so much.
Mm-hmm.
Max Maven said in an interview, magic has never let me down. Magicians have let me down, but magic has never let me down. And I very much feel that way. I was able to work with Joshua J. and Andy Gladwin on the youth program for Magi Fest, and I'm going to be doing that again this year. And this last year, it was so inspiring to see how many of them were still reading books and learning from books, and had an expert at the card table in their back pocket, or Strong Magic, or any of these books. And like how many of them, it was inspiring how many of them were getting the resource, but they started learning online. They learned from, a lot of them said they learned from Brian Brushwood's Scam School. Brian is another person. If you haven't talked to about being on the show, Brian's great. I'll shoot you his email when we're done here. So as a result of them, I submitted some stuff from Scam School. I've met Brian a couple times in the past. He had me on this last year, and he gave me some great career advice and breaking all of it down. I told him about what I wanted to do, and he gave me some great insights towards doing it. And I was shocked at how many magicians were still. So this is all the things I like about magic. The thing I dislike, I was shocked at how many magicians are still hung up on the whole exposure thing. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I don't. Yes, exposure can be bad. You can die from exposure. Of any kind. But people, I think there's this fear that people are constantly trying to do this, particularly with mentalists. So if you look up my episodes on Scam School, I taught a routine that's in a book, and it's based on something that's in magic shops for $8, the Haunted Key. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked at how many wannabe magicians were upset that I exposed the Haunted Key on YouTube. And we didn't think about it. As we were filming, Brian and I Googled Haunted Key, and we saw dozens of videos, each with over a couple 100,000 views, saying Haunted Key exposed, and they were all teaching it wrong. And it was this hasn't happened in the decade I've been performing this routine, so I think it's fine if we're going to put it out there. And again, it's over 100 years old. I'm not teaching, someone else's marketed, patented effect or anything. It is something that's in the public, domain. And I was shocked at how many performers were saying, I had ruined it. I had done this. I had done that. I didn't care about the art and all this stuff. And it was frustrating for a minute until I kept doing it at gigs, and actually did it on the radio as a publicity stunt this last Halloween. It's still a favorite routine of mine. And guess what? When people saw that on the radio and saw the video of it online, they didn't Google how it was done. Mm-hmm. They Googled how to buy tickets for my show. So if you constantly have people Googling your methods after, or worse yet, during your show,
and you're boring.
Yeah, you gotta take a look in the mirror when it comes to that stuff. Plain and simple. Lee Asher said years ago, do you I don't know, did you have KFC in Toronto, yes. Jonah? You do? Okay. All right. Do you know their recipe?
No.
It's what they base their whole business on. Their multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar. Yeah, it's a big secret recipe. Right. Their original recipe. Guess what you can Google?
The
KFC right. Original recipe.
Good point.
That is a secret. That is a multi-million-dollar secret. Are you Googling it?
As we speak.
As you speak, okay, now that you know. But have you ever thought, you know what, do I want to make the chicken? It's just now. Again, did you have that 1 in a million person? Of course, always. But are you working for them, or are you working for everyone else? And also, I would argue someone looking up magic after a performance, is a budding or future magician. Like, honestly,
Totally,
like
totally. And it's our job to really help bring them in instead of be like, oh no, they looked it up. It's like, that means they care about this side of magic, which means they're in.
And the final thing I'll do with the whole, and again, Brian has talked about this millions of times. Scam school is not exposure. It is teaching with the intent to perform. It is about giving a knowledge base and all this other stuff. There is a definition of teaching magic. There's a definition of exposing magic. And
Scam school.
Yes. Scam school is definitely in teaching territory. But I found an article. I can't remember if it was in like the Jinx or the Sphinx years ago.
Some inks.
Yeah, some inks. The Phoenix, something. One of those old magazines. And someone was complaining because they had just bought Animan's Book Without a Name. They had paid a whopping $3 for it. And they were mad because they found a copy of it in their library, where, Jonah, anyone can go and see these secrets that they paid $3 for. Anyone can go find them in that library now.
Go find them. You can still find them.
Exactly.
Go.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
And again, like, yeah, and so and that's the thing. And ultimately, I want to give an experience to people. I want them Googling my name after the show, not how I did stuff. So, and even if they do look some of this,
I want them Googling, is chakras real? Can you really haunt a key? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want them, you know what I mean? Like, I want them Googling the capital M part of the magic and not the trick part of the magic.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I actually have a section on my website that says Learn. It has sections on psychometry, dream interpretation, and I have a full reading list of books that are both related to and outside of mentalism. But some of it is, it's all stuff I've learned from. It's all stuff I've used techniques from. There's a couple things in there that are hard to find. So if someone wants to go through the trouble of finding some of these books, they can. I mean, the information's out there. I mean, yes, it's just because we have secret and hidden information doesn't mean we have to hoard it. There are some things I'm very secretive about, not just in magic, but my life. You'll notice I didn't say the town I live in now. I'm very, very careful. I don't mention the town I live in. I'll say where I'm performing and everything else, but I don't tag my location when I'm near my house,
I love it. The second last thing is plugs. So I know you mentioned it briefly, and I'll just tag along just to mention, which is that you are spearheading for a second year the youth program at Magi Fest. So I will be at Magi Fest. I'll be stopping in to say a little hello at the youth program. Is there anything else as well as, by the way, obviously I know we spoke about it so much, but if you get the opportunity to go see Joe perform, whether it's at the Chicago Magic Lounge or at one of his shows, Joe, is there anything else that you'd like to plug? Any other resources or things that you have for people to go find you?
Again, at Joe Diamond Live on all social media. I'll be honest. I have a lot of people who send me friend requests, but if I try to accept as many as possible. But when it's like a magician who the only thing we have in common is we have like 25 mutual friends, and they've got a 3.5 of clubs in their profile pics, which, by the way, guys, stop it. Stop holding 3.5 of clubs in your profile pictures. Just stop doing it. Just please. Let's move forward as an art form. But if you shoot me a message on Facebook saying, hey, I really dug you on Discourse and Magic, and if you shoot me a message, I'll accept your friend request. Because again, with bots and everything now, it's hard to know for sure. But if you have any questions, feel more than free to reach out or send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, again, at Joe Diamond Live. My website is joediamondlive.com. If you are at Magi Fest, I'm working with the youth program, so I'll be running around behind the scenes with a lot of that kind of stuff. If you want to say hi, I'm all for hanging out, jamming, performing stuff. If you have any questions about anything you've seen me do online and want to go over it in person, I'm more than willing to talk about it. I have a lot of information out there on different podcasts talking about like publicity stunts and how to get press in your area, like magician business and Successful Performer Cast, which these and between this podcast, the Well Attended podcast, and the other two I just mentioned, like you guys are doing the big work of giving basically a whole. I mean, talk about sharing information for free. I mean, these are resources to allow you to learn about the ins and outs of magic as an art and a craft and a business and a career, and it's all here. It's all like so. So listen to all that stuff. If you've got an extra $10, go and get my my ebook from Vanishing Ink. It's called Journal of Alchemy. It's five pieces from my professional working repertoire. I know you said this was coming out in a few weeks, so it'll still be the holiday season. I have a presentation for the Haunted Key, which is Christmas Carol themed, and it's a really fun routine that I like doing at this time of year. So there's a little bonus in there, particularly for this time of year. If you already do Haunted Key and use the out to lunch principle, you'll be able to learn this, script pretty easily and slip it right into your stolen repertoire.
I was cleaning up my room literally just today, and I found a random haunted key, and I was playing with it, and I put it down. So
there's some tips for finding good actual antique skeleton keys that are right for the effect too in the book as well. And there's I talk about how to keep a journal and everything as well. So that's what I've got out. If you can find a copy of Underground Jam on DVD, there was actually a bootleg of it on YouTube for a while before it rightfully got taken down. It was the entire 3-hour DVD, but it's a video with me, Jay Sankey, Jeff Stone, and Eric LeClaire. There's still some really good stuff on it, so if you can,
wow, I gotta find that.
If you there's some magic shops will have them. Like every once in a while, like Magic Inc. I know has a few copies. Last time I was in there in Chicago, you can find it if you poke around a bit. It's not currently it's not currently in print. It's not currently in the Sankey Magic stock, but it's there's some clips of it.
I will tell you, Joe. I will tell you if it's got. I don't know who I don't recognize the other name, but if it's got you, Eric LeClaire, and Jay Sankey in it, I am hunting down this DVD, especially because
Jeff is great.
Jeff, what was his name?
Jeff Stone. Another person to look into getting Jeff on Stone. The podcast. He has a great book, 793.8. Tarot Spectral Chill is a great. He's talk about ritual. He's taken an old mathematical card effect and turned it into a tarot card reading. It's amazing. But there's
I will. Anyways, really I will hunt down.
Yeah, if you hunt down a copy of that, I mean, I literally only have one copy. Otherwise, I would.
If I can't find it, I'll buy it off of you.
I can bring it. I can bring it with, and we can watch it on my laptop at Magi Fest. We'll do a
what are you guys
screening.
doing? And they come in, and we're just both crowded around watching.
Yeah, it was. It was fun. Okay, so real quick, I'll finish with this story. I got to tell this. So Eric, Jeff, and I had the bright idea. We're staying in this beautiful suite in downtown Toronto where Jay has put us up. And Jay's gone home for the evening to be with his wife and kids like a human. But we're staying up all night jamming. And he gave like each of us like a brick of bicycle cards. And we were like, oh, let's prank Jay. So each of us took like 3 of our decks and Mercury card folded. Like 3 decks worth, so 9 decks worth of cards.
Oh my gosh.
And we littered them all over the suite. I mean, on the couch, on the TV, like, just everywhere. Like we were laughing so hard. We were like, oh my gosh, Jay's going to come in, see this and think, and just ask, what did you guys do last night? Like what, he's going to say something when he comes into film the next day. Jay, this is how much of a baller Sankey is. Jay comes in, talks to us like nothing is wrong. Nothing. The entire afternoon of filming. He's like, yeah, and we say something about like, something about, the hotel room, the cleanliness of it. He's like, well, hey, you guys are having fun. That's good. Doesn't draw attention to the fact that we have Mercury card folded hundreds of cards around the room and just plays it off like it's nothing. And we were like, oh, all right, you beat us. You got us. So that's a really fun project I look back on with fond memories. So if you can find it, take a look at it. I am working on another book that should be out in early 2019. It'll be available very likely through Vanishing Ink again, and This will be all specifically mentalism I've created. A Journal of Alchemy is my approach of sort of bizarre close-up magic type stuff, storytelling, close-up magic, and such. But it's really short. Like the opening effect is just a presentation for Doc Daly's last trick, and the script is about a minute long, but it's got a lot of meaning packed into it. So I'm really really proud of that book.
So this last section is the take-home point, one specific thing that you think from the whole episode people can take home. So I will mention one as well. And for me, it was exactly that. And it was more specifically to just think about in your show, like, how can they be engaged versus do they believe? And are they on the edge of their seat and interested versus will they believe me? Because if I have a perfect show where they perfectly believe that I can do something, but nobody cares and no one's interested, it doesn't really matter. So I really, really like that. And that was really helpful. What was a highlight or a most important part for you?
I think Eugene was right. You got to ask who you are. I'm glad that I rediscovered that, and I'm sharing it with people here. One other thing I'll say, and something that's kind of really helped guide me as well, is, and a good question to sort of ask yourself as an artist, as a person, human being, magician, and that is, what is your truth? Like, and I think that's the other thing with, so many mentalists getting hung up on the believability aspect. It's just their truth is convincing people of a falsehood, which, okay, fine. If that's what you want. I have nothing against someone's artistic goals. But if that's the end of it, like, what is it about? Is it about, again, living out a Twilight Zone episode in real life? Is it about connecting here in the moment? I mean, I'll have completely different goals going up to someone, at a restaurant versus at one of my studio shows. But each time I'm going to want to share some truth, share who I am, share what I think about the world, or find out some truth about them and make that part of it. So just, what is it you're trying to communicate with all of this? And really ask yourself if you're doing that. If you're not, again, if people didn't ask me, well, what do we call you? I would know I'm not on the right track, but they are, and that's what I've wanted. That's what I'm shooting for. So I'm getting that. The clearer you can have that in your mind, and the clearer you can have, again, of who you are and what it is you want to communicate and what your truth is, then again, there's nothing to Google after the show. They just want to spend more time with you and find out how to do that.
I love it. And I think it's one of those things where this idea that the you shining through in the show and shining through in your performances, that's something that no matter how it's said, and so many magicians say it so many different ways in so many different languages, the idea of just understanding that the you is the most important part, because, they're not, the part that makes a magic show special is not the general magic of it. It's the your magic of it and the you. And what's cool about a magician is a layperson does not know the end or the beginning of the abilities of a magician. They don't know when it starts and when it begins. So what's so nice is you have a wealth of things that you can be on stage. And like you just said, the better that you can understand who you are and what you're trying to share, the better you can have a nice little spot in the world of magic, and also a nice little, your way to impact people in a way that really reflects you and your goals and what you're trying to say. So I love that. And with that, a big, huge thank you to you for joining us on the podcast and giving us all this incredible info.
Absolutely.
And as well, a big, huge thank you to everybody at home who listened in on this whole episode and learned a bunch. And once again, and I like to say this at the end of most episodes, but I try to remember when there's episodes that blew my mind about certain things, but there's enough information in this episode to just absolutely go to town on whatever the thing is that you are worried about or dealing with. And particularly, I want to shout at all of the mentalists out there, because really the reason I want to do it is because
you don't need a reason. Just shout at the mentalist.
No, not just in general, but The reason I want to shout at all of them is all of your answers, all of the answers to all of your questions are in this. And whether you're agreeing with Joe or disagreeing with Joe, the questions are in this, right? Like the bottoms of the issues, it's just about getting out there, performing, and amazing people. And you have so many of the secrets how. So it was really incredible.
Hey,
Thank you, Joe. And,
thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for doing this. Again, this is an amazing resource, and thank you for bringing it. I think magic needs this, and you're doing the big work.
Well, that means the world, and I'm very excited to hang out with you and the rest of Discourse and Magic at Magi
Let's
Fest.
do it.
Amazing, amazing, and as usual, we will see everyone next Thursday. Peace. Well, there you go. I hope that you like that, and I hope that you learned something. And I think that so much of the conversations that we had can be applied, and this episode is really one that might help let out steam if you get caught on some of those philosophical issues in mentalism, like what do they believe or how do they leave the show? If you find yourself getting stuck and not being able to produce because of it, listen to an episode like this, because it really opens your mind to the fact that we're all just creators and we're trying to put on the best show and make the best impact and keep people the most engaged. So I hope that you learned something from this episode, and again, go follow us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, and go sign up for email. I'm not sure if it's still going on right now, but there might be a contest still going on, and you could win a whole bunch of really cool magic books. And anyways, I will be at Magi Fest in January, so if you're going to be there, go hunt for me, hunt in a good way, and for the rest of you and for your ears, I will hear you, or I guess you'll hear me next Thursday. Do I usually say I'll see you next Thursday? That's so strange. I never see you. You hear me. It's a podcast. Anyways, hear me Thursday. What?